Friends, family, and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Delboy blog. And as always, we date stamp these. It is year 3, blog 17, or in legacy numbers, blog 121. And it is dated the 16th of the 6th, 2024. And we've sort of agreed, we'll do the news first and then move into what's been going on this week, and then all the good stuff, comments and everything from yourselves. So, what enticed me in the news this week? Not that anything ever does. We always start off with the war. And this article came up. It said, Putin's proposed interest in peace negotiations this week is a hollow attempt to seduce the West, war analysts have said. His peace plan includes Ukraine surrendering almost 20% of its territory and abandoning its aspirations to join NATO, and the West lifting all sanctions and recognizing part of Ukraine as Russian. Yeah. That's basically saying, just say we won and let's move on. Pretty much. Apparently, this all came along because there are peace talks going on. And, of course, things like the Olympics have come up where Russia is banned and all this sort of stuff. So they're talking about ceasefires when this is going on, for which Putin has pulled out this proposal. I think the deliberation was, if we agreed to all of that, then of course war crimes would also be taken away, because you're in sort of like intruding on sovereignty. So yeah, I looked at it and went, that proposals is almost like just fall over and just say we won, which is ridiculous. When you have sanctions like this, it's supposed to be an equal balance, 50-50, all of this sort of stuff. You say this, and of course we'll do this, but there's nothing in there. And we move to UK news. Nothing really special going on. The Trooping of the Colour occurred yesterday to celebrate the King's birthday. The Euros started. That's the football. The Euro football started on Friday with the opening game between Scotland and Germany. I watched the first half and then didn't watch too much more. As much as I love to watch Scotland, they weren't doing well in that first half, and the final score was 5-1 to Germany. I'm optimistic for Scotland. I need to be. They're the closest team for me to root for past my own English country, England. So, come on, Scotland. We know that you can do it if you just try. But Germany was a hard ask anyway. The election campaign continues with more TV debates. And the Labour and Conservative governments have both now released their manifesto on what their new policies will be and how they're going to fund it, which has caused all sorts of talks this week on the figures don't add up. There'll be a massive shortfall on this, that, and the other. All stuff that's really above my head, but I know this anyway. I've said all along that whichever side get in, it'll be the same. As much as we keep saying, Brexit has gone, the pandemic has gone, the war continues, etc. All of these things have a knock-on effect in the economy, and I don't see any of the governments turning anything around unless they're going to turn around and say, right, well, we stop funding all of that then and concentrate on us, which won't happen. We're part of NATO. It's just going to be the same. And my last part of the news is Happy Father's Day to everybody who's a father in the UK. I know the Americans have a different day, but it's Father's Day today in England. So happy Father's Day. And I know, a few of my friends are fathers. And, I wish them well. I hope they get everything that they want. Cup of tea in the morning or a coffee, breakfast, few little DVD or video prezzies are nice. All the old style stuff. So now we get to me. And it's been not a great week. I started off on Monday going to work. I logged in. I started to write an email to say what the hospital had said, and wanted to put that I was happy to be back and I'm looking forward to doing this stuff. And all the time I was uncomfortable. I found that the bruising that was under my arm was uncomfortable because I was putting my weight on my arm, and it was irritating all of the underside of my skin. So I said to them, I think it'd just be a couple of days. Do you think it's best that I continue, or whether I should have another couple of days to see whether that will assist? And they said it was my call. And I just thought to myself, look, if I'm extremely lucky in 6 weeks' time, I might get my second procedure done. And I need my arm to be healthy, because it's unknown whether they're going to go through my groin or not. And that bruising was really bad. Just to give you an update, that's how it looks now. You can hardly see it, but if I can turn it around there you are. You can see all the blood's moving, and that's where I put my arm. And when I press that, it's still tender. So you can imagine all of this was swollen for a good week and a half. Unfortunately, though, that's taken till now. And when I phoned on Thursday, they said you might as well have the rest of the week off, because that on Thursday, by the way, was still here, and it's still tender now. So fair enough. So I got myself a fit note, because obviously, well past the acceptance for an operation, which I didn't mind doing. And on Sunday, I made sure that everything was in place by filling in a repeat prescription. And the reason for the repeat prescription is that when I was first given 2 new tablets, they only gave me a month's worth. And all my other tablets have been 2 months. So you've got a disjoint, you see, of time. So I filled it in knowing that my 2 new tablets would run out by Wednesday. So I filled that in, and I just phoned up on the Monday night to say I do realise that it's very, very early, but 2 of the tablets are relatively new to me. I was only given a month's worth, which is why it's an omission. And would it be ready? And they said, hopefully, we can see it here, and it's with the doctor to be signed off, and then it'll go down as an electronic prescription down to your pharmacist. So I can't see why not. And I said, okay, because Wednesday was when I'll have none. So Wednesday came along, didn't it? No, Tuesday came along, should I say. I wanted to get it before, because that's my last tablet sorry, my last tablet was on the Tuesday. So I went down on Wednesday, and that's right, I've got to remember this, on Wednesday, early, and they said, we've got your prescription, but unfortunately we haven't had a delivery yet, so can you come back at 5:30? Pretty sure this is Wednesday, or was it Tuesday? I do apologise if I've got the dates wrong. It's just that so much has happened this week. And I said, no, not a problem. So I went back home, rested a bit more, did a walk. I went down at 4:45, so 45 minutes early. And I got to the place at 5:05 because that's how long it takes to walk there. And they'd shut. And this is at a time where I've got no tablet. So I needed them. You know, I mean, 2 tablets, 2 that have been emergency given to you because they've recognised there's a problem and you need these in your, kit and caboodle. And they told me to come back at 5:30 and they shut at 5 o'clock. So I went to reception and I said, why are they shut? And they said, due to unforeseen circumstances. And so, I wasn't having a go at reception. I just said, well, where am I supposed to go? Because, basically, I'm a carer for my mother. And, of course, I can't go, walk miles to get the tablets. I've just done a coronary procedure. They said, if you got those tablets prescribed by the hospital's probably a good place to go. And I said, okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. And then, of course, there was a guy that was behind me that said, so do you know when they're going to be opening tonight? And, of course, they told him, no, it'll be tomorrow. And he said, well, what am I supposed to do then? Because my lad's got epilepsy and all his medications behind there. And it just brought to my mind at that point, here I am complaining about 2 tablets and he's got a lad that's got epilepsy. I know which ones I'm more nervous about, and that would be the lad. So I sort of walked away going, do you know what? These things happen. Walk to the hospital. So I walked to the hospital, which by this point, I'm quite exerting myself. So, I started to feel that pain again. And I got to the dispensary and it was shut. It said, due to refurbishment, this place will not be open until the 17th. And I thought, oh my God. So I've got a pharmacy that told me to come back at 5:30. They've shut. Reception that said go to the hospital. I go to the hospital. They're shut. What to do now? So I went to outpatients and that was shut. And I was walking sort of like back and forth, and this woman came up to me and she said whether I was lost or not. And I said no. Told her the story and she said, follow me, we're going to A&E. So I followed her. We got to A&E and I was given to this nurse, and this nurse said, yeah, that's awful situation, isn't it? I can see you've been passed from pillar to post. Unfortunately, you will need to go to the Fines Centre, which is where I went the week before. I don't know if anybody remembers last week's blog, but I had to go there to have my bandage checked. Go there and see what they can do for you. So I walked over there and I filled in the form again. And then I handed the form back and I said, look, I know I filled in this form, but really I only came in really to see whether you can help me, because I'm looking for 2 tablets to get me through tonight. And these tablets appear to be quite important because I was given to them after I had an ECG and before my coronary procedure last week. And they said, we don't dispense medicine here. I'll have a little word with the doctor and see if there's one of them or any of them that we can give to you. While you're doing that, the only thing is that we can phone through to a late night opening pharmacy and get that to you. I said, I can't get to the late night pharmacies. They're too far away. They had a look and it was true. Grimsbury or something was the closest one, and that's a good 6 or 7 miles away. And they shut at 7, and it was then at that point 6:15. So they told me to phone 111. I thought, it's a bit drastic this, but I'll phone 111. So I phoned 111 and I told them the story, and I had to give them all my details, and I explained the situation. And they said, right, we've got all the details. You're going to get a phone call. Of course, this while I was waiting, this phone call did come through, and it kept cutting off. So then the fine centre came up to me and said, how was I getting on? And I told them what was happening, and they said, wow, you have had it bad. Follow me. So they took me to where their drugs are kept in a sort of a safe. And lo and behold, those 2 tablets weren't there. And they said, look, the GP is at the A&E. They've got the tablets. I'll phone now the nurse and they tell them you're walking your way back up, and we'll see what they can do for you. So I walked back up the hill and went into the A&E, and the nurse was there, and she said, yeah, I've just got the note. Sit down. You need to obviously fill in another form to say that you're waiting. And I said, okay, but honestly, I'm just ready to go home. I'd rather just stay calm tonight and get my tablets tomorrow. I'm sure one day won't matter. It's just I am taking it seriously because I've had a procedure. They said to sit down and be fine. And after about half an hour, the lady came with 2 tablets and some water. I took the tablets and I went home. And that was about 2.5 hours just to get 2 tablets, and one of those was aspirin. But it was 2 tablets, and the other one is a blood pressure tablet that's quite important. So, that is what it is. And then I sort of like just settled back for the night. On Wednesday, I got my prescription in the morning. They apologized to me, said that there was an emergency that happened and that they couldn't leave anybody behind, including the rest of the pharmacists, because you have to have a pharmacist at the place to be able to present medicine to you in regards to ones that have already been pre-made ready. So they all had to go. And I said, it's okay. I said, it's just that I did say that these tablets were needed because I didn't have any more, and I've just had a coronary procedure. And I said, it was just bad luck. And they said, yeah. So anyway, I took my tablets. They gave me my cream for my arm. I've been using this cream now on my arm, and that's why it's dispersed nicely. But until that point, this was all red, inflamed, and swollen. Rather nasty. Even the nurse looked at it and said, and that's been like that for a week, has it? And I said, yeah. It said, ooh, that's bad. Yeah. And this cream aids with bruising and dispersing of blood under the skin. So, and it's been doing really, really well. I haven't got it in front of me to tell you what it's called. It begins with A, Armlil or something it's called. Anyway, Wednesday I did my live stream with my friend Ian. And Thursday I made the phone call to work and they said have the rest of the week off. Came back Monday, refreshed. No problem. And basically that's sort of like it, really. I've done a little bit around the house. I've had to sort of like not use my arm too much. And there was a little job that my mum wanted me to do. And it needed a saw. I don't know if you've ever had bramble at the back of your garden and old rose bushes that were growing up, even though you've sawed them off, they're dead. They stick up from the ground and new branches sort of like stem up and you have to use a strimmer. Well, the strimmer won't cut through those old stems of the roses. They're really, really thick. So you need a saw. And obviously with my sciatica and my knee and everything, bending down's quite difficult. So I looked on Amazon and there's something called a multi-tool. Apparently you can buy multi-tools. Now you can either buy a strimmer with a circular blade head, which would cost a fortune. We've just bought a strimmer, but this is one where you can detach the normal string part of the strimmer off and put on a circular blade. You know what I mean? Bit overkill. So I didn't go down that route. And this multi-tool is sort of like a hand oscillating saw. Okay. And so I ordered one, and it was with 68 accessories at quite a good price. In fact, the multi-tool's here. Here it is. So it's a multi-tool with a saw end, and it's got a quick release mechanism so that you can just take different ends off. You can put sanding blocks there so it can be a detailed sander, all sorts. Quite a nice little device. You know, battery goes on the end, no problems. And it arrived on Friday, and basically, I couldn't believe this. I opened it up, and just like everything, there was the multi-device, no problem. But there was a box in there that full of accessories that were DeWalt, which is what you'd expect because it says it's a DeWalt multi-device with 68 accessories, and these were low branded blades that, you know, would snap, you know, the things that would cost about 14 quid. And it said on the box there are 39 accessories here. So I phoned up Amazon and said, look, I sort of laid it on thick a little bit. I said, I did this for a job that needs to be done today. It's just arrived, and I've got this now turn up. And I'll tell you now, I've got parts that are not DeWalt. It's supposed to be 68 accessories. I've got 38. I need to therefore ask you to speak to the seller and get this sorted. I need to know whether I need to send this back, and or is it possible I can use it today and send it back. She immediately said you could use it today, so that was great. But she said the seller will basically correct the problem. And the reason that I've got to go through this seller is because there is a seller on behalf of Amazon, not actually in stock on Amazon shelves, which means that if it was Amazon, they'd have just sent out another one, you know, the correct one. But you have to go through the seller, which was Tools for Trade. That was it. Anyway, this guy phoned up and he said, I've looked and you've got the right thing. I said, whoa. I said, how can it be the right thing? I said, it's got a box with clearly that doesn't say DeWalt. And it says 39 accessories. It says the 39 accessories is on top of the accessories you get within the device, making 68 accessories, which is what you need, what you should have. And I said, now come on. I said, anybody that reads that advert for buying from you would read that you get the accessory, you get the device, and you get 68 accessories separate to the device. They're not going to be thinking that includes what's inside the box as standard. That's ridiculous. Well, that's what it is. And I said, well, you're having it back then. I said, if you're not going to honour this, you're having it. And he said, so be it then. So be it. And I said, okay. So I'd already got the return QR code, and unfortunately it was for Every. And if anybody tells you Every have only got certain outlets around your hometown in regards to getting this done. Plus, I haven't got any printer ink. I haven't used my printer in years. It's dried out. So I needed the printerless service, right? So I looked around and there was one that was literally only half a mile away. So I went down there and their printer was broken. I went, oh, you're joking me. I said, where's the other ones? And they said, oh, there was one at Morrison's, one at the bottom of something called the Warwick Road. It won't mean anything to you. And there's one actually in town just at the corner of Banbury Cross, which is ideal for me because Banbury Cross is, well, my friend Alan will know because I took him round town. It's right at the bottom of my hill. So I said, okay, I'll try there. And I got there, and lo and behold, their printer was working, and it got sent back. But before I did all of that, I counted up the accessories that were inside this box. Now, this is the bag of accessories that every device gets. Here we are. So apparently there are 28 accessories in here. Well, there's 10 sanding pads. There is the sanding head to put the sanding pads on. So we'll see what else. So if we've got a count so far, that's at best 11 items. 2 saw blades, so that's 13. And this little bag in here, which has got, what, 1, 2, 3 items. So that makes it 16 items. So he was lying. Absolutely lying. Lying crock of shit is what I... So, you know, I did the count before I put it in there, and I said, I think you ought to look at your maths and probably go back to school. And I pretty literally put that on the invoice that was in there that counted it out as saying there were 68 items in here. And on Saturday, a new one turned up in a case. Far more, as you can see, accessories. They said it needed 68, and Amazon have done me proud looks. Look at all those blades for it. Loads of them. And sanding paper and all sorts of stuff in there. And a cheaper price. So stuff them. But be wary of this badly advertised adverts that these people fill in. I admit it doesn't say that the accessories were going to be DeWalt accessories, and I went, look, I get that. I said, but as far as I'm concerned, you've got to honour the numbers. And they didn't, so stuff them. And the reason for getting this tool was to, you know, obviously to do some stuff in the garden, help my mother, but I also wanted to do a sort of like a thank you to my brother-in-law. He was telling me that he didn't have a detail sander. You know, one of those ones that's a little sander. Now, I've got a big sander, a DeWalt sander, which uses the same type of battery. But I haven't got one of those ones with a small detail head. This will allow you to put that on. So I thought to myself, he can borrow it whenever he wants. And I phoned him up and he went, marvellous, thank you very much. And I said, I had you in mind when I was buying it. There's a use for me to use it. And, of course, there's a use for you to use it, so it makes perfect sense. So that was me thinking how I could help him and how I could help my mum, and that was the best solution that I had. And it all fell to bits with Amazon's and their third-party trading policies. Saturday was putting my blog together, and suddenly we're here. And I'm raring to go to work, really, to be quite honest. What else can I talk about that I did this week? Oh, I'll tell you something else. Yes. So I started to think about how I could improve things on my Mister. Now, anybody who knows the Mister will tell you that it's a brilliant device. You put all the ROMs across onto your SD card. It acts just like the physical device, etc., etc. But the trouble is all these ROMs, okay, they're zipped up. So when you expand them, they put them into their correct folders. But then we have to go into each folder to find out what type of file is in there. And of course, many old computers came in tape format, disc format, cartridge format. And so when you're trying to load something up, if the folder doesn't say that this is the tape version, you're going in blind. You see what I mean? So I thought to myself, I can make this a bit easier. I can add a folder called tape, add a folder called disc, add a folder called cartridge, and I can do a catalogue of all the games with their extension. And if they've got a tape extension, I'll put them into the tape folder. If they've got a disc extension, I'll put them into the disc folder. And if they've got a cartridge, I'll put them into the cartridge folder. And I'll do this for the letters A to Z, you know, with a number 1 as well. And then all I need to do is decide I'm going to load up a disc next, choose the disc method. And when I go into the library of games and go to each letter A, B, C, I can go into the disc folder and see if it's there. Yeah. So, and if it isn't there, you know it's on tape. So then you can just switch to tape. It's better than going in blind where you go into the folder and if it doesn't show a file, you know, oh, damn, there was a tape file in there. You know what I mean? So you have to come out and go back in to find it out. So I remembered that I used to have a program at work called Tree Size Professional. And I remember being very, very keen when I was first put into this job for working for the probation, that whatever software they had, if it wasn't too expensive, I'd buy my own copy because I'd learned to use it. So I bought myself my own copy, but of course the subscription ended after a year and I didn't renew. But just like any program, if you bought it once and you've got a legitimate key, it will allow you to install it and use it. It'll be locked at the old version. And this program is fantastic. You know, don't get me wrong. It finds duplicates. It tells you when each file was last accessed. It gives you a pie chart of what is used and what is not used. Full path with file extension at the end. All sorts. Absolutely wonderful program. So I thought to myself, what's the quickest method to do this? And I thought to myself, I know what I can do. I'll do an extract in text format for the path of these files. And then I'll write a batch routine that moves them into the folders called tape, disk, and cart. And if I can't use that with command line, I'll use PowerShell. So I got the extract out. The extract was there. The full path was there. I did a removal of all the other attributes that weren't required, like age of file and all of this sort of stuff. So literally only the path was left. And then put the command in the front for moving the file into a new folder. Put a .bat extension at the end, ran it, bang. It went down the whole of the directory structure and moved them into those folders. Quick as that. And now I've got, for every letter, A, B, C, D, in my Commodore 64 library, I've got in there, in the folders there, tape, disk, cart. And all the files now that are disk are in the disk folder, all the ones that are tape are in the tape folder, and all the ones that are in the cartridge format are in the cartridge format. So that's just a little something that I tidied up this week. And on top of that, I expanded the game-based version of Spectrum games and put those into the Mister. So I've now got the games for the Spectrum there as well. And, you know, like literally I've just been having a bit of fun clearing up some stuff rather than playing some games on Steam. And literally, guys, that is my week. I'm just going to have a sip. And we'll get on to the shout-outs. Hope you're finding everything okay. We've got through that quite quickly. It's been like I say, you can imagine my week has been bitty and not nice. I'm hoping for so much better this week coming. Work might be the best tonic, to be quite honest. So, shout-outs. And as you know, I love doing the shout-outs because these are the people that have commented on me and wished me well. Any questions, which are brilliant because I love answering questions. And to be quite honest, it's just a joy to do. So this week, my shout-outs are, these people have all commented. They are Sinjin, Weebob Art, Ian Hill The Ramblings, Martroid, Jambon, Danny Jukes, David Retro Games Played Badly, Seb's Place, James Chavez, Denny, Colin Jones aka Ponder, Roberts Retro Gaming, and Carl Todd. And hopefully I haven't missed anybody, because the one thing that I couldn't really do too much this week was extra videos. So this is the first week in quite a long time where there has just been a blog and then you're getting just another blog at the end of the week with nothing in between. Normally I do a video capsule or something, but it just hasn't been time for me to do that. But that'll return next week. It was just nice that I managed to get a live waffle sort of out the way. Love doing those, speaking to people, just talking about the hobby that you love. It just really is a tonic. I can't say any more. So I hope I haven't missed anybody out in the shout outs. There were a couple of names that concerned me that weren't there, like Steve, my friend Steve. I sent a text to him this morning, hoping he's well, because I also noticed that he hasn't done any of his Planet Crafter videos for 2 or 3 days, and I know that he's been in a bad way the last couple of weeks. So my heart is out to him. I hope everything is okay, and I hope to see some of those videos out very, very soon. I'm missing all those death scenes already. So we'll move straight into the comments. Okay, we're moving really quickly. Amazing. So the first one at the top is, because these are not in any particular order, Robert's Retro Gaming, or as I call him, Gaming Royalty. Yeah, we'll talk about him a little bit later on in his channel. He's just put a single line there saying, "Been a weird couple of weeks, my friend, and I hope you are well." Just to say thank you very much, Robert. Yeah, I'm fine. Just to add to that, my mother is not too bad. She still won't do anything about getting her medication changed so that she has the same painkillers as I'm on. She keeps going and buying Nurofen, which are no good for her. You know, she's got much bigger problems than, you know, the water on the knee and the pain in the back and all of that sort of stuff. She needs to see a doctor. You know, I'd love it for her to get a hearing aid and have a test, but she won't get that done either. So I digress a little bit there. But my mother seems to be happy. I think maybe it's because of the extra week. She was expecting me to go back to work, and she was dead miserable about that. She said, "Oh, I don't think you ought to. I think you ought to stay here." All this sort of stuff. So I'm hoping it won't be too depressing. But I don't think the weather's helped. Until today, the weather this week has been mostly over cloud or rain. There's been no sun. Today, sun's out. Amazing. Last day of the week, sun's out. But yesterday it was raining and everything else. So, yeah, I've got a funny feeling the weather does affect my mother quite drastically, really. So the next one we've got, I think it's Carl Todd. So thank you, Carl, for your comment. It's got, "Hi, Del. Thank you as always for answering my question last week. I would class your medical procedure as a success because now it seems that the root cause of the issue is known. Now you have the options on how to progress." And that's exactly what I was trying to imply last week, Carl. I hope that came across. You can look at these things as being not great and great. And I was saying it was at the time that the surgeon came up to me that I became despondent. And you got to admit, if you've been sitting there for 5 or 6 hours, you've been waiting weeks and weeks and weeks, and you find out you've got to have another procedure, you are despondent. That doesn't mean it wasn't a success. I always turned around and said, "Look, we've got another procedure, another way of moving forward. Let's go for it." It's just now we're in that daunting having to wait again. Do you see what I mean? So, yeah, definitely with you, matey. I'm looking at the positives of that. Thank you so much. You continue. "It was an interesting topic last week about subtitles and dubbing. One thing to note is that, and that is the dubbed version. Sometimes the story is modified. For example, Battle of the Planets versus Gatchaman. Sometimes it has even totally been a different story, e.g. the Magic Roundabout. Yes, there are known instances where, because the translation is done by different countries, the interpretation of the English for it is lost. From that lovely title of a film, Lost in Translation. So yes, I do get that. What they mean by the sun coming out, they put the golden shower, stood out in the sky or something. You know what I mean? It all depends on what country it's coming from. So yeah, totally get that. And the magic roundabout. Yes, I think there's a couple of episodes that people look back on and go, "Are they on drugs?" Don't get this at all. Yeah, and we now know, don't we? They're lost in translation. You continue. I use CLZ collectors to log my movie, book, and music collections. It's useful to have access to it on my mobile, so prevent buying the same thing again, especially those that are repackaged with different artwork. Dead on. So when you buy this, you usually got you only had to pay a small amount for the mobile version. So I bought the installable version of the collector software. They want me to move to the internet version. So what I do is I install the product, and then I put my books in, and then I sync it with the cloud, so it's always on the internet version. But then that syncs up with the mobile app, which is much cheaper. I think it's like £4 or £5. And you sync that, and it downloads, and then you've got a portable version of stuff that you've got, so that you don't, when you go to a convention or you go to a market or something, you know exactly what you're looking for. If you ever see it, you know, you can look and go, oh, because it does display all the covers as well, all the picture covers, everything. It's a fantastic product, and what I've been using for 17 plus years. It's not the cheapest. There are stuff that you can do this quite cheaply yourself. You can use spreadsheets. Don't get me wrong. It's just, if you want a database engine and you want one that's, you know, very, very versatile, and even will, you know, separate things by years and author and writer, and whether it'll tell you whether it's a first printing, a second printing, all of that sort of stuff, or bootleg or whatever. This is the program to buy. It's the CLZ collector software. You continue. About the movie I mentioned last week, it is #alive, so don't forget the hashtag, or you will find different movies. Yes, I gathered that, matey. Thank you. And the one that I thought of, that alive, yeah, that was just off the top of my head, because I don't see many Korean films, so I know I haven't seen it. Very dry today. So it says, so now I've got some questions for you. Oh, good. I like questions. There are many film directors who are famous, and people will go to watch their new movies based on the name of the film director alone. Can you think of an underappreciated film director that you would recommend to take a look at? Ooh. I've been asked something like this before, you know, many years ago, you know, like an up and coming director, or a director that has only done a few films, but you know, those films have been shot out the park, but now you don't hear from them anymore. You know, you don't hear whether they've done anything else, or they've gone retired or slipped into obscurity. And those ones were Rob Reiner, Kenneth Branagh, and David Fincher. Originally, I used to use those three quite often. I mean, you couldn't sneeze without watching a Rob Reiner comedy in the 80s. Kenneth Branagh sort of like hit gold with his first couple of films, and then you sort of like, he did some mediocre stuff, and then suddenly when Marvel did the production of Thor, he was back in the limelight again. It was sort of like a resurrection out of the, you know, like a phoenix out of the fire. And the Marple films that he's doing, you know, sorry, the Poirot films he's doing at the moment, they're actually really, really well done. I've really enjoyed them. I thought they'd be a boring subject, but actually quite good. I actually even like the Frankenstein film he did with De Niro. which is where people say he started to become mediocre again. But yeah, I quite like Kenneth Branagh. And David Fincher, well, that just speaks for itself. You know what I mean? Back in the day, we all turned around and went, David who? When Alien 3 was coming out, everybody would go, never heard of the guy. Who the hell's that? You know, we were all squabbling around and finding out that he did Madonna pop videos and stuff like this. And saying, you've got a bloke who makes pop videos doing something as expensive as the Alien franchise, you know? And then, of course, he went on to do Seven and The Game and a number of high-hitting films. And he's still around now. But when I was being asked these questions, he'd only done a couple of films, and I was going, "This is a director to watch." Do you know what I mean? So I think after The Game came out, or Seven, I think it was. No, it was The Game. I turned around and said, "This is a guy to watch." He's knocked 3 films right out of the park with a home run. You know what I mean? So those were my old choices. So if I was thinking of now, I'd choose Ty West, definitely. Friend Nigel turned round to me and said, have I watched these films called Pearl and X? And I said, no, I haven't. He said, fantastic. If you like those 2 films, there's another film coming out this week. He said this year called Maxine. You'll love that. And I said, what other films he's done? Pretty much next to nothing. So he's a pretty much new director. And no word of a lie. I took Nigel at his word, bought the steelbook editions of these films without even seeing them. I watched them and I thought, wow, yeah, I can see where Nigel's coming from. This is a director to watch. I mean, it was like me watching those David Fincher films that I talked about just now. Brilliant. I'd probably mention a name you might not have heard of, S. Craig Zahler. If I remember rightly, he did that Bone Tomahawk film. And that really took me by surprise. I think he's done a couple of films since then. Equally good, but not as well received. And S. Craig Zahler Bone Tomahawk film didn't really get much, public say, if you see what I mean. Everybody I've told to go out there and watch it have done so and have come back saying, wow, what a film. And yet, it doesn't get mentioned much. So, yeah, that'd be one. And to just round off with a third, Edgar Wright. Yeah. I'll let you look at Edgar Wright up. Basically, he's done something called Baby Driver. And there's a couple of films that came out in the last 5 years that have had Matt Smith in, and a few good British actors and actresses. And they're very stylish. The one thing that this guy really does is if he sets something in the 60s, it really does look like the 60s. I mean, we're talking wow. But some of the camera work and the plot lines in these stories, brilliant. Baby Driver, yeah, definitely. I think it's called One Night in Soho or something. I can't quite remember what the other one's called, but it's brilliant. So I hope that answers that question. Number 2, do you have a favourite 3D movie where you consider the 3D aspect improved the viewing experience? Oh, yeah. And they were the 2 that I mentioned all the way through when 3D was out. Even after 5 or 6 years of 3D being out, I still mention the same 2. And that is Gravity and Hugo. And if somebody pushed me for a third, I'd have said Life of Pi. Now, the question says where you consider 3D aspect improved the viewing experience. In other words, without it being there would it equally be good? And Gravity is one of those films where it's pretty boring, really. It's uh, a disaster on a space station where um, where the hero has to go to another space station that's really on its last legs to get any chance of being able to survive and land back on Earth. And it's the 3D and the space aspect that makes you go, yeah, this really works in 3D. You see what I mean? If that 3D wasn't there, it'd be pretty flat and it'd be an okay-ish story, but it'd be something that you'd probably put on telly more than be a cinema film. And I think Hugo speaks for itself. It's quite an oldish film. It's set in it's set in a train station. The 3D it just pops. To be quite honest, is the best word to use. It pops, and it works really, really well. I'm not surprised really with that one based on the director. I'm going to let you go and look for that one. Life of Pi's got one really good scene where the lad is on the raft and there's golden creatures are leaping over him out of the sea. It's just gorgeous. But as a 3D film on a whole, it's neither here nor there. But Life of Pi's that scene alone made me go, wow, that's nice. Yeah, that's cool. So hope that answers that one. And then last question, something totally different. Do you have a dream car, i.e. a car that you would love to have but could never afford? Well, most people that know my blog know that I had an Audi A4, an old one, for 10 years. And I always wanted another Audi, but I wanted a new one. I'd never had a new car at that point. All my cars had been 2 years old or older, and most of the time they were 10 or 12 years old, right? My only 2-year-old car was the third car I ever bought. And I've been driving since 1989 in a manual car. Automatic car I was driving a bit before then because I used to work on the farms. So they had automatic transmission, different type of exam. So I've only ever really drove cars that were opportunists for me to drive. So I never went round garages going, oh, I'm going to try this BMW, I'm going to try this Audi. When I had no intention to buy, I'd find that really, really boring. So all of my friends had things like Opals and Lancias and I remember my friend had a what was it called? It was another Renault. It was a GT turbo version of a Renault 5, I think it was. Scared the life out of me. If you've ever driven around in a Renault 5, you'll know they're pretty tall. If you go round a circle, round a roundabout, they tilt and nearly turn over on their sides. Bloody awful car. But there were you always had one friend that was quite rich and their dad drove around in a lovely car. And I did tell you that I drove around. I went to Manchester and my girlfriend's dad drove around in a Lexus. That was a gorgeous car. That was smooth as anything. I mean, you couldn't hear the engine. That's how quiet it was. But it was like £44,000. And when you're at school, you labelled all the cars you wanted. I want a Lamborghini. I want a Ferrari and all of this sort of stuff. But I never really, really wanted one. When I got to the point where the Lexus I drove around in, the thing that came to my mind was, if I crash this car, it's £42,000 write-off. I mean, my house was the same price as this car that I was driving around in. And yet the car just still gets you from A to B and you're still stuck in the same traffic. So it's really the internal comforts that make them nice. But when I was considering my Audi, I did look at buying another Audi, which was the Q series. That's their their SUV versions. And I did look at the Land Rovers and the Range Rovers, but they're far too expensive. Um, right now, I'd buy an electric car, one of the top ends, an Audi or a Lexus or whatever of those. They look gorgeous, but it'd have to be a lottery win. Um, so no, I think the answer is a pretty disappointing. Haven't really thought about it. I love cars, uh, and when I see a good one, I always go around and go, "Wow, look at that, gorgeous looking." Wouldn't mind that, but I've never really gone out of my mind and gone, "I'm going to save up for that." The only time that's happened is this car that I'm driving right now, which is an Audi A3 S Line 2 litre. Gorgeous, gorgeous car. My favourite, my car I've ever driven, the best car I've ever driven. So it just goes to show you a bit of a sheltered life, I think. Thank you so much, Carl. That was absolutely brilliant. Some great questions there. So I'm just going to have another bit of a sip. And we get to Wee Bob Art. And Wee Bob Art says he's watched along as usual. Del, glad to see that you're still blogging. Anyway, hope you have a good week. No question from me this week, though, as my brain is not functioning. It's a bit like mine, Wee Bob Art. No, not a problem at all. Like I say, sometimes there's gonna be weeks where, I can't think of anything to ask him. Sometimes, it's not a matter of asking. You can basically just think, do you know what? That's baffled me this week. I might ask a mate what he thinks, like a topic. Like I was thinking the other day about how to do this. Couldn't think of a way. Have you ever been in a position where you needed to come up quickly with an action plan, but were struggling to find one? That's a great one, you see. Just out of nowhere, a question like that. But no, I wish you all the well, my friend, and I hope everything goes okay with you. I'm still struggling along with Rebella 7. That's that art software. Brilliant, love it. It's just my skills are not as good as yours, matey. I mean, my God, it's like chalk and cheese when you look at your stuff to my stuff. And we get to Ian Hill, the Ramblings. My friend Ian, who I like I said, did a live stream on Wednesday with. And please, any of these, most of these people that I've read out have got their own channel. There's Wee Bob Art, Ian Hill, the Ramblings. They've all got channels. Please go and look at their stuff. Hopefully, give them a like. That'd be nice. But sub to them if the subjects are there that you'd find interesting. Sub to them. It costs you nothing. It's absolutely brilliant. Anyway, Ian starts off with, "Hi, Del Boy. Thanks again for the blog. Enjoyed watching it. I think all your viewers appreciate how difficult it must be at certain times with all of your health issues. There's a lot of physical and mental pressure to endure. Hope your mother is doing okay, getting by and watching the world like you described." Yeah, she's still doing that, waving to her congregation. We're so glad you came on my live stream and hopefully took your mind off things. Yes, it did, and I mentioned that. That's the one thing that it definitely does, is take my mind off things. I enjoyed it, but took painkillers to help me. My right foot was extremely painful. On Thursday, it seemed to get worse, and I had to wait until Friday morning for the nurse to come. I do feel a bit better now, but still feel sore. It's one of the problems of being diabetic. Things heal very slowly or not at all. Yeah, I can appreciate that, matey. I hope you get better soon. When you mentioned about the Aztecs, I thought of Mel Gibson's Apocalypto. The scene at the end when we see the Spanish ships arriving in the 16th century with strong support from the Catholic Church, the Spanish were forcefully expanding their empire, plundering the wealth of these countries, forcing conversions to Catholicism and slaughtering lots of the population. Today we might describe it as genocide. The Spanish and Portuguese empires were at their height at this period of history. Sometimes I think about various interests I have, but cannot pursue because I haven't got the time and money to do. I am a stamp collector, but had to stop. Always been interested in collecting old coins, but never pursued it. I know it's possible to get Roman coins at reasonable prices. I would love to collect those pieces of history. So my question this week is there any interest you have which you have never pursued but would love to if you had the free time and money? Best wishes and have a grand time. Thank you so much, Ian. And what an interesting question. And thank you for the history lesson. Hope some of that pronunciation was bloody awful from me. But brilliant bit of education there. I certainly am more informed than I was. But when it comes to hobbies, I've started and stopped loads. And always space is the problem or money. Back in the day, I'd have loved to have kept my dinky collection, those little cars and vehicles from TV shows that Corgi and Dinky came out with. I loved Airfix kits. I loved building model kits around Spider-Man and the Green Goblin from Horizon. They were made in resin. But once I'd assembled them, you got to paint them, and I'm no good at painting. You needed to do that subtle shading, where you put a base on and then shade it up, where the light is coming from this direction, so you make it darker on the left or hand side, being as the light is coming from the right. I'm just no good at that. But I enjoyed doing them. And, I'd love a collection of cars. I'd love a collection of, anything. Do you know what I mean? Statues was the one that I was the saddest to give up. I was buying about 12 statues a year, one a month, because they cost nearly $1,000 each. So it was a big chunk of my money. But along with films and soundtracks and comics and software games, it's you just can't keep up with it, matey. So I had to stop. But if there was one that I'd love to go back to, it would be my Sideshow or Marvel statue collections. I'd love that again. Yeah, for definite. And with that, I'm just going to take a little break. I don't know if you noticed, but it's getting quite warm, and I might be drinking a little bit more and slurring a little bit more. But this will be seconds for you, and I'll be back very quickly. There, and I hope that would just seem like seconds to you. It was a couple of minutes to me, just splashed a bit of water. And salute to my friend Ian. Thank you so much. And like I say, please do go and look at his channel. Fantastic stuff. And I'm just looking down, and the next one is, my friend Denny. As you know, chapter and verse from him. Always insightful. I hope you get a great blast of me reading it out as verbatim. Insightful guy, got his own channel, is currently doing cleaning up work on magazine covers and game inlays, but he's got his own channel, does adventure stuff, and we're working together on our next live stream, which will be in the next couple of weeks, guys. So we're heavily researching that, and hope you'll join us. We'll have an announcement on the day that will be out soon. And he starts off with, "Hey, mate, hello again for another week. Hopefully you found a bit of contentment and great to see your film captures and live streams this week. Again, sadly for me, it's been a full week of work until Thursday and Friday, and yet I was busy on my time off, busier than a rented donkey on the seafront." That's busy. Friday, though, I bought a new car to be delivered September, so that's something positive, I suppose. As always, I hope your mother is well. Yeah, now, this is the thing where I'd be excited about that. I'd be going, "Oh, September, come along quickly." I look for things that will excite me at the moment, but uh, the big things are just out of my hands at the moment. And the only thing I'm looking forward to is getting well, and of course increasing my numbers for my um, YouTube stuff and doing well at work, really. So that's where my concentration is at the moment. You continue. The election. One thing for sure, regardless of who gets in, we'll feel the pain in some way or another. Inflation has gone down, but not our food or fuel bills. Why would they care? They can claim on their expenses. Too true. And where they live and everything else. And as I've mentioned before, just like you said there, inflation's gone down, but the food and the fuel bills go up, and they'll blame that on the war. And therefore, if there's another government coming in, that war will still be going on. So who's going to do a better job? It's just atrocious, really. None of them are going to be able to turn things around. This is all down to time and how quickly. I mean, if you've anybody who's ever took a loan out, you know full well that you look for every hole that you can to pay it off quicker. But a 10-year loan, the maximum you're probably going to slice off is probably 2 years. So if you've got the type of deficit that we've got, this government's going to be in for another 4 years. You know, this new one, if it is a new government, in 4 years, they're not going to turn it around. The loans that we've got to pay off are going to take decades. So, and that's just one aspect of it. And that's the money side of things. So you continue. What an absolute shame about William Russell, 99, and a few months short of his 100th birthday. What a kind and quiet gentleman. Yeah, you'll notice at the end of my blog I mentioned about William Russell dying at the age of 99, and he was in Doctor Who and Superman and a number of great productions, mostly theatre and convention work at his age, but always well liked and loved, always got a standing ovation at conventions. Brilliant guy. I'm like you continue. I love Elite, but couldn't click with Star Glider regardless of how I tried, and I did try. Jez San, yes, a credit to the gaming community. As you said, with the introduction of the FX chip. Though again, I didn't much care for Star Fox. The accession back then was with 3D stuff that wasn't quite ready for computers at that time. PlayStation 1 suffered the same fate. 3D to each, 3D too early, and the games look as rough as hell even back then. Yeah, and I'd agree with that. But I have to look at him as a pioneer. Without his, I'm going to try, we wouldn't be as advanced as we are now. And that's why I look at those games and give the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, there's games that are totally up there in the stratosphere that people have said, and when I've tried them, I've gone, why? I can't see anything in this game that makes me want to play it. There must be something I'm missing. And I usually have a lot of patience, but generally, if I don't get it within a day or two, that's it, I'm off, gone. So you continued. I've watched Godzilla -1 last week, and for a tighter budget film, it's really good. Taking Godzilla back to the monster that terrified Tokyo. Japan was the best idea to refresh the franchise. Quite like the dubbing too, and no doubt the sequel will come along at some point. The message wasn't in this production at all, which was totally refreshing. Yeah, we've been talking about heavily pushing um, things of today into our movies that we're watching, where we're supposed to be sort of like imagining ourselves in another time or another place, and bring it, and it makes things woke. Totally agree with that. There was no message in there. Also nice that it went back to Tokyo. I agree. I always find it really weird. They always do like Godzilla versus Kong, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I want both of them to win. Uh, and who's mad enough to kill off one of them? Or, you could imply that they're dead, but they're not, because they're too important two IPs. You know, they're they're so high up that you're not going to kill them. So if there is going to be a fight, it's going to be a stalemate. So it's a bit of a waste of time, really. The enjoyment is the spectacle and the destruction part. So yeah. You continue again, another plug for the Apple TV production of Dark Matter. Stunning episode again this week. I can only imagine if Sliders had gone down this route, it would still be on today. Yeah, Sliders ended too early, but it did start to lose its way. I think it's, actors started to leave. The writing became a bit sloppy. Certain writers left. Different production teams. The normal stuff that happens when you're on a production that's now in its fourth or fifth year. It's very difficult to maintain the quality the longer you go. Thanks for answering my question. Dubbing was also present on two of my other favourite kids' productions when I was on school break in the 70s and 80s. The Adventures of Robinson Crusoe, there was narration only, and The Flashing Blade. And I've talked about those. We both talked about those a lot, haven't we, Denny? I love The Adventures of Robinson Crusoe. The music by Robert Marlin is just fantastic. The Flashing Blade, I'll have that tune now in my head going along. We mentioned last week Monkey. There are many that we watched, and we were never really that bothered about the subtitles if they were there, and the dubbing never really bothered us either really too much. As kids, I think we were much more lenient on things like that. You continue. The great choice, by the way, for Steve. Armchair Thriller is worth it alone, just for as quiet as a nun. That's one of the stories that's in there. Yeah, I've got that. Another choice I'd put forward is Thriller from the network label. Maybe Old Gold Media, that's the new company that's took over some of the network stuff, we'll have it at some point. Yeah, let's hope. I know that Armchair Thriller is definitely there, which is why I mentioned it. And yeah, I hope I helped Steve out. Question for this week. What sayings in a movie or TV production does your nut in? For me, it's what you saying. It seems to be the Acme saying on all productions, to the point me and my old man listen out for it now. So see you soon, mate, and pass on my best to your mother. Of course I will. All sayings. Let me think. Oh, yeah, one that does my head in. One's where the villain says, "We're not so different, you and I." Oh, does my head in every time. Like, what do you mean you're not so different? Bloody hell. Chalk and cheese, I mean, for God's sake, black and white. Oh, yeah. What's the other one? Oh, yeah. I would, I would tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. Yeah. How many times in films have I heard that line? I would tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. Yeah, those two lines come to mind as two sayings that are oft used and do my nutting. Brilliant question, that. Yeah, fantastic. Love that. So we move. So salute to you, sir. Thank you, Denny. Don't work too hard. We'll have a chat this week. We're getting so much closer to getting that next live stream out. So saving up my energy to be able to do another sterling job of working with you on another production. And we get to Colin Jones, my friend, aka Ponder. Chapter and verse again, always to the point, always correcting me, or another point of view on something that I've given an answer to. I'm sure he does it to annoy. So he starts off with, not what you wanted or needed regarding your heart, but thankfully it's not all bad news. Fingers crossed it's sooner rather than later. I saw the bruise, pretty bad, but they look worse than they are. It is looking better now, even with the moving bruise. Yeah, and I've given an update on that. It was sad that it happened to be my main writing arm, that it was in a place where you constantly have your arm rested on wood, putting pressure on it. I'm putting pressure on here now, and I can feel it, but it's so much better. So much better. There's going to be no problems tomorrow, and hopefully just now a couple more days, and then of course hopefully 5 or so more weeks time go through this again. But of course that was a one-off. You're not going to get a hematoma every time. That's how I look at it. It was just sod's law, as I call it. Always going to happen to me. If there's something that says, oh, it's a 1 in 1,000 chance, I'm going to be that one. You know what I mean? But there we are. What a palaver over the lawnmower, but at least you got that sorted. Yeah, it was. Bloody hell. Mental that was. I was thinking of The Incredible Shrinking Man on the subject of miniaturization movies, but that's a close second to The Fantastic Voyage to me. Yeah, and I mentioned, I think, The Fantastic Voyage. There's even a cartoon, The Fantastic Voyage, and of course, Land of the Giants and all of those. They were all quintessentially great, when we were watching them. The Aztecs were brought down by the Spanish... bloody hell, conquistadors? Can't pronounce that. You're so much better with your language, matey, than I am, which is strange because you're Welsh. That's my joke. With Planet Crafter, I watch Steve's for the progress and discovery, and will watch as long as he does them. Yours are more like spoilers. I had to answer him on that one because I felt bad. So I answered along these lines. Thanks, Colin. Unfortunately, the bruise irritates how I write and use a mouse, and so the desk irritated the bruise further. The Planet Crafter is intentional. This is what I put. You will notice mine is not in episodes, and 2 of the 3 videos were live. Live broadcasts could be spoilers, depending on content and user. Mark is so good, his could be considered walkthroughs. Some of our friends also like walkthroughs. The good news is I hardly explain how it's done, and more along the lines of where it is. I finished a game, so it's the end for me anyway. So I was just sort of like putting it out there. Mine is a totally different thing to Steve, and thank God it is, because then we can still continue with Steve. Mine was more a sort of like a goodbye postcard, to myself. So that when I look back, I can go, oh, I remember playing that game. Oh, that base, my God, yeah, I remember that. Oh, I could walk round that now and know where everything is. Do you know what I mean? In a year's time. It was supposed to be more that. So I wanted to explain that because it sounded like you didn't like what I was doing, even though I know that's not your intent. So don't get me wrong. That thought went out of my head very quickly. Zelda. I went the computer route, not the console route. I've had a look, and it really is not the style of game I actually enjoy, and that's the thing. There was another talk I had with somebody this week It was in a chat channel about movies. So if you're in the mindset that you don't like something because you went a different route, there's no point trying to change their mind on something. The question in this case was about Zelda. And so, of course, I can only explain what Zelda is. And yes, it was a console-related thing. So if your mindset is, I went down computers, so I don't look at consoles, and so basically I'm never going to like it, and by the way, I've looked at it and it isn't my sort of thing, then, to be quite honest, talking about Zelda is a waste of time. It's a waste of time to the people that are listening, waste of time me explaining it to you. But I do it because it's a question, and it's also a topic that you can sort of expand upon and say why you like it, or and that's what I did in this instance. But I totally get it. Zelda is one of those games that's up there in the stratosphere when people talk about game design. But if the game is not for you, then the format, no matter how much they change it, will be exactly the same. It'll be the same with the Final Fantasy series, etc., etc. I didn't mention probably the two biggest of their games, and that is the Ocarina of Time, Zelda, the Nintendo 64 version, which gets talked a lot, and Breath of the Wild, which is their newest one on the Switch. I know you've got a Switch, and I know you've had consoles, so bit taken aback really a little bit, but not in any way, because Zelda's not for everybody. There's certain stuff that, as I've mentioned before, that people talk endlessly on and on and on about, and I've tried it and I've gone, I don't get it, don't see it, it's just not me. Don't know what you like about it. You must be an alien or something. But I never look that nitty gritty at it. I just go, it's just not for me. Oh my word, I didn't go back to Bomb Jack on the C64 after the first load. Bloody horrendous port. It is a bad port of a game, but funnily enough, I can put it on and get enjoyment out of it. The music I like. Sprites are just horrendous. They're huge. There's no maneuverability in it. That's the thing. But then I was never that enamored by the arcade version. I mean, it's fun. It's got a nice gameplay mechanic, especially when you can float down by just keep hitting the fire button, and your cape sort of like lets you drop in increments, so you can slow the thing down. But in the end, you're just collecting bombs in a sequence order. Great. Write any arcade game down there on a piece of paper, what the story or what the method or whatever it is that you need to do, and all games look rubbish. Sound rubbish. But it's the enjoyment of playing them. And yeah, the 64 version is not that enjoyable because of that movement problem. My question: what are your feelings on executive toys, i.e. desktop ornaments with no actual use but are fun to watch, or that provide an interesting display? You've got it. You're going to get a great answer from me on this one, and that is, as a kiddie, I couldn't not be fixated by them, because I remember telling you in a blog only a couple of weeks ago about gyroscope. I had a gyroscope. All you did was you pulled the ripcord. You could balance it on the end of a pencil and it would spin round. As it slowed down, it would fall off, and that's because of how the gyroscope was keep maintaining its balance through centrifugal force. That's what all these desktop ornaments are. And I remember getting my first desk job, and somebody bought me Newton's Cradle. Everybody knows Newton's Cradle, that stupid aluminium case, sort of like arms with a cradle of balls. You pulled one away, it hit the force would go through the other balls and knock the other one up, and they would just slap the balls back and forth, until the force diminished. And there were so many others, ones with magnets, that basically there was a magnet in the base and the thing would spin round, and every time it hit the magnet, it would go off in a different direction, and it would just swing in all different directions, and all of these desktop ornaments. And I used to love going into the gadget shop, and there used to be a precinct in Manchester, and they opened up this gadget shop, and no word of a lie, it was filled with clocks that were powered by potatoes and all sorts of stuff, right? Cheap cack, basically. But I could spend hours in there, hours looking at them. And I suppose as I just got older, I went, no. And now it's a matter of space. Where would I put it if I had it? Got no bloody space whatsoever. So I can imagine you have got yours on your shelves above your monitor, because I remember you saying something like that in your blog. I doubt you've got Newton's Cradle on your train. I can imagine what that'd be like. Jesus. So I hope that's given you a good answer. You definitely brought me a happy memory. Thank you so much for that. And don't pay too much heed to the bad side of some of those comments that were coming out, because I don't think anything bad of you. It's just I need to sometimes get across the reason why I answer the things in the way that I do. And I was mentioning that there was a similar thing that happened with a chat. I'll explain that one just quickly. We were talking about 3D in movies and how you can watch 3D in movies, and the fact that 4K TV won't allow 3D movies to work on your TV anymore, and that our 3D TVs will soon die. And I said, VR. Of course, there's projectors. I mentioned that a little bit later on. But then the other person will look at that question, and depending on that, will then come up with their own opinion. Yes, but I don't like it, the way it makes me feel. When I was looking at it, the thing kept moving around. I wanted the thing to be in a set position, etc., etc., etc. And when somebody then comes back with an answer like that, I needed to then reply that no, the whenever you're looking at VR, it's got what they call head tracking, and you can turn head tracking off, and basically you'd be in a fixed position, and your 3D will be wonderful because there's none of the darkness, the polarization. The 3D will be coming at you in native 3D as if you never had glasses on. And the argument would then come back, yeah, but I still don't like wearing them. And there's the crux, because the same person is poo-pooing it because they just don't like wearing them. Where you're answering it from a point of view of the mass audience, and how the question could be answered, how can I watch 3D? So it depends on the perception of the person you're answering to, where they might drill down to just themselves and not think about the other people might be interested in knowing another way of watching 3D. You see what I'm getting at? So I looked at it from a mass point of view, and the person that was answering was looking at it, no, but I just don't like them. Do you know what I mean? And like I say, those are just things that happen in conversations, and I blame myself because I just don't think I explain things properly. So I don't ever have a quarrel with the person who answered. It's always me going, you're improving me and my ability to get a point across. Because obviously I'm not getting the point across because you wouldn't have answered in the way that you did. So that's the end of that. So salute to you, sir. We move on to Seb's Place, and he's put, great blog, matey. Sounds like this ordeal has at least brought you closer to your brother-in-law, which sounds like a positive. Family is important. I have a question for you. If they ever made a Del Boy movie, who, dead or alive, would you want to play you? Keep well, mate. Oh, dear. I've been asked that question before. Who would be you in the story of your life? I've been told that before. And I've never had a good answer for it, because it's like, who'd want to play me? Are you looking at it from a point of view of the story, or they got to look like me. Because if they got to look like me, it's poor them. They'd have to wear a fat suit and all sorts of shit. But who would I like? I'd like William Shatner. He'd be good, wouldn't he? With all these ums and ahs. I'll tell you another childhood hero of mine, Jack Klugman. I used to love Quincy. Because he'd go in there and he'd be so passionate about trying to get across to the district attorney or something that we need to look at this from a different point of view. There's millions of people that are dying unless you do something. And I'm there all the time with my questions and giving an answer saying, it's this. And you've got to do it this way. All of that sort of stuff. In fact, yeah, Jack Klugman, that would have been great. Sadly missed. Sad ending to him as well with his voice. How's that for an answer? Yeah, those two. That would be great. But I'll probably get Peter Griffin mentioned or Christopher Biggins. That's what I usually get, you know, ugly looking fat people that, you know, shame. There you go. Great question. Thanks, Seb. Enjoyable, fun little thing there. David's retro games played badly. He's put, keeping me company at work as usual, mate. As you mentioned, although you have to go for another procedure, you know exactly what's wrong now. Definitely a positive. Yeah, I think we've come across that now. Thank you so much, matey. Regarding Douglas Adams, I always preferred his Dirk Gently books. Yeah, they were on Channel 4 as well, weren't they? Dirk Gently and his Holistic Detective Agency, wasn't it? Yeah. I suppose I liked the science fiction nature of Hitchhiker's Guide. Dirk Gently was more quintessentially Columbo-ish detective-y work type stuff. I know the tune. Got the tune in my head now. So you continue. Hate subtitles. Fair enough. Fairly sure it was the Spanish that finished off the Aztecs. I think this might be misinterpreted here. We were talking about things where we would like to see as films that don't get made very often. And I happen to mention about a particular battle. And I must have said which side won or something, and it's wrong, which is bad of me. See where I was talking about where I'm trying to improve myself, and I hope I do. But it was more to do with, wouldn't that be a great film to see how that was done? Because I used to play the Total War series, and I used to reenact a lot of Roman wars and so forth. But and they always brought out different continents and armies, and you can reenact them. So those were great, and I just thought, yeah, a couple of films of those would be good. You've put, I use CLZ for my games list. Very handy. Oh, what a product. I can't, honestly, it's so nice to know that a couple of the people out there are using a product that I've been using for 17 years. Really is a great product. And as ever, I enjoyed the trailers. Thank you so much, David. That's brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. I hope I kept you great at work as always. And we move on to my salute to you, and definitely go and see his channel, by the way. His collection of games, my God, to die for. Jambon, my friend Jambon, who I'm so looking forward to meeting again this year. Hopefully that happens. He's put, hi Del, thanks for another excellent vlog. I enjoyed listening to this one while I was cooking on my day off. Nice to see you in fairly good spirits after a difficult week. Sounds like it's been exhausting and a lot for you to process. It has been, matey. Thank you so much. And I'm trying to remain in good spirits, and I hope it's coming across. You know, it's the more we move forward, the more I know it's closer to happening again. But I'm also thinking, at least I know what it is. Before, it was always the interrogation and then the intervention, wasn't it? So anyway, you put, hope you enjoyed Dead of Night. I did. I've watched that now. That's a favourite of mine, and one that stands up to this day in most respects. Can't uh, can't beat a creepy ventriloquist doll. I love that story the best because it reminded me of Magic. Now, Magic is a newer film, right? About a ventriloquist dummy with Anthony Hopkins. Um, Dead of Night is a similar type of story, but made in 1945 compared to the other one that was made in, what, 1978? Something like that, 81. Magic, it was called. Brilliant. So you continue. A handheld mister for £150 seems too good to be true, but I'd be very tempted to get one at that price. Having said that, it'd be as happy with a cheaper non-handheld version, if such a thing exists, and is actually available, because sometimes navigating the keyboard keys on a handheld can be a bit of a faff. Yeah, which is why me and Mamemeister had a common interest in a handheld that we both had at the same time, but I got rid of mine and I regret getting rid of, which was the Pandora. The Pandora handheld was an Amiga handheld. Such lovely crafted thing. It was no bigger than a DSi, but it had a full keyboard on it. And you can imagine this is what we're looking for when we're getting these handhelds. We're looking for something like that. Something that used to be on, what did they call them? Oh, for God's sake. Those phones. I had a keyboard at the bottom. In fact, I don't know if I've got one in here. Yeah, BlackBerry. Something where there's a keyboard. Because those virtual keyboards are just bloody awful, to be quite honest. I'll close that up later on. And I know those keyboards don't work very well, but they're better than bringing up a menu and then using a crosshair to get something in. You know what I mean? They do their best they can. But, you know, it's still a sticky point, isn't it, with handhelds? Thanks again, anyhow, and all the best to you and your mum. By the way, it was nice to hear how she's out and about, chatting to the folk from the shop down the road. Yeah, my mum likes to go outside and see people going into the post office next door, because as they pass her, they say hello, and then she has a chat. The trouble is, I don't want people to think that my mum is the crazy old lady that's at the corner of the shop that goes out and talks to strangers. But if it cheers my mum up, fair dues. That's how I look at it. Salute to you, sir. Thank you so much. So looking forward to Pinfest. P.S. Sorry, Martroid. Here we go. He's got two. Oh, right. Yeah, he's got two here. I'll read the first one I think is first, because this one I was just about to read out has got a P.S. in it. So the first one says, "Hey, Dal, sorry to hear about the ongoing health issues, but at least you're getting it sorted, slowly but surely. Just wondering if you've ever watched the Chronology Gaming YouTube channel by Jeff Wires. His mission brief is to play every video game ever in order of release. Glurk. Seems like a really good dude and very entertaining. Worth a look at if you're at a loose end for something. Something to watch." That sounds amazing, but I tell you what a task. In chronological order? What if you get one out of order then? Is that you busted? Oh shit, gotta go back. Oh yeah, that'd be hard. P.S. you put, "Shit hot pickups and trailers this week, Del. In the line of fire especially. Absolute gold. Thank you so much, sir, and salute to you." But I'm definitely going to look that out. Jeff Wires. Right, gonna look at that. The nice thing is it's written down so I can come back and find that. That's brilliant. Salute. And we move to James Chavez. He's put, "Strength to endure the clinical challenge. Up strengthen, Delly Welly." Ah, yeah, I know what you're saying. Thank you so much for the nice comment there, James. Yeah, now that I know what the problem is, I've got the strength to meet the clinical challenge of it all, and onwards and upwards. Totally get that. Thank you so much, matey. Then we've got Danny Jukes, who says, great video as always. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for watching and just being a supporter of my channel. All of you. Thank you so much. And the last one we've got is Sinjin, who's put, hey, Del Boy, apart from making empty threats, I'm not sure that what Putin can do. He won't use nukes, because that will be the end of all of us, including them. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. And even this week, there are empty peace talk stuff going on. It's just a mess, isn't it, my friend? And we just want it to end. But I have to just reiterate here that the news is there just for a date stamp. I don't really have anything to say on the matter after I've read it out, because, well, A, it's the news, B, it's happened, and C, I have no control over it other than giving an opinion if I've got some strong thing about it. So, yeah. And that's, by the way, the end of the comments, ladies and gents. So we're moving on now, and we get to the watched on YouTube. And as you know, this week it's been equally as difficult to watch stuff as it has all the other weeks. Tiredness, blurry vision slightly, although that's going away again, so that's a good sign. Just need to get my sleep back, and I'm pretty sure I've got my hobby back to the way it used to be, and I'd be so happy. That'd be so good to me if I could just do that. That'd be brilliant. So what we do with watched on YouTube, that section, is there are two YouTube channels that I watch religiously on a Saturday, which I don't say that you guys should do the same, but I do say that they're two incredibly good shows with their production values so incredibly high, and they've got interesting things to say in regards to hi-fi equipment, or in the interest of this week in retro, everything to do with retro. So let's start off then. So this week in retro had its normal 3 topics. They were called Real Player is Better Than Winamp. The second one was Voodoo on the Move. And the last one was Amiga PCI. So I'll let you watch what they were about, but the titles sort of like tell you what they're about. Voodoo on the Move is talking about the fact that there's a project of being able to put a voodoo card inside a laptop. Anybody that had a laptop would know that really we did get accelerator cards later on in life. But Voodoo was the kick-ass platform to have any game on, and finding a laptop with Voodoo in just sort of like didn't happen. And it's to do with power usage and size and all sorts of things back then. Amiga PC, that the reason they're talking about that is because of the PCI card. The Amiga had many slots, expansion slots. It had a sidekick as well, a platform where you could slot in a whole PC to the side of it and have CPM. But when the Amiga 600 and 1200 came out, most of the world was disappointed, because PCs were increasingly on the rise. Their price was therefore coming down, and the Amiga was trapped with its expansion bus. So PCI wasn't there. It had standard ISA or IDE slots. So yeah, it was an interesting discussion. That Techmoan was the episode was called Sharp's Back-to-Back Boombox Mixtape Madness. He was showing off a boombox where instead of having 2 tape decks side to side, they were piggybacked onto each other. So you put the tape into the same hole. It had 2 heads above, so it saved on the width, of the player. but it's got mixtape madness because recording on it was a pain in the arse. He showed it off quite easily. You put one tape in one that was the blank, and you put the play one after that to close the lid up. But you couldn't forward unless you were using the recording one. So you had to take the tape out, put it in the wrong hole, forward it to the place where it was to be queued up, take the tape out, put it straight back in the hole, put the blank back in, and then hit record, and it would then record that track. And that's a mess compared to just putting one on one side, one on the other, forwarding it to the point where you want to record it, and then play and record and play on the both tape decks. So yeah, mess. Brilliant episode. About 25 minutes long. You get to see some old tech, the insides of it, and the problems with it. So brilliant. Then the next thing I watched was something called Amigos Retro Gaming, and the title of this particular episode was called "The Game That Broke Cinemaware." It came from the desert, and I was intrigued by the title. The game that broke Cinemaware, the one title that basically killed Cinemaware off, is what I thought it was. And then it mentioned it came from the desert, which is a game that is beloved in the Cinemaware collection. So I watched it. It was an interesting watch, but I was looking at it from a point of view that they were going to discuss how this game killed Cinemaware. I don't think it did. There were other titles after that. So yeah, it's a bit of a misleading title, but a damn good one. I mean, it's an incredible documentary. Really good. Then I turned over to Movie Collector. Movie Collector is my go-to channel when I want to know more technical things about cinema, because he's an ex-projectionist and he's got his own cinema in his house. And he was reviewing Dune Part 2, which has just come out on 4K. So I was interested to know what he thought, rather than some of the other people that you'll see have also reviewed it later on. Then we got Mondo Cheldovic Movies, who is just a brilliant guy. I mean, my God. His was the go-to channel whenever I wanted to point somebody to how to start their Laurel and Hardy collection. And he's got a great amount of knowledge on soundtracks, Blu-rays, 4K, immense amount of knowledge on horrors and video nasties. One of Nigel's friends, who's a friend of mine, Nigel. And like I say, you will always find something of interest on Mondo's channel. He does a lot of Bruce Lee stuff as well. So yeah, an all-rounded great guy. Brilliant. Then we move, so my salute to him. We then have Wertherby, who I told you I don't watch every week, but just the last couple of weeks, his name's cropped up and I've taken the bait. This one was about a game called Golden Lap F1 Management. The reason it took my mind to it was because the graphics are bloody awful. They're so simplistic. They look like a child done them. But as he pointed out, this is a game where it's all about the maths. All about how you're going to win in F1 management. Because it's all about managing the tyres, all of that sort of stuff. And all you see is a little dot going around a track. That's all you see. So it reminds you of some of the old Spectrum and Commodore 64 management games. Having very simplistic graphics, but it was the engrossing gameplay that you played it for. Then we get to Obsidian Ant. He had an interesting tagline to this video. It's called The Altars, and then it said after that, I can't believe this good game is that good. So he was basically saying it's game of the year. And I watched the video and I went, wow. And then I read a little bit more and watched a bit more and found out it's a demo you can download at the moment and it'll be ready in a couple of months. But I'm telling you now, it certainly looks great. It's called The Altars. I've wishlisted it. It's one I'm keeping an eye on. Definitely something that I'm keeping an eye on. And then we move to my friends that are non-computer and more film related, but are my friends, and I support their channel. One of them is Rock God, my friend Nigel, Rock God 2004. Definitely go and give him a like and a subscribe. He did 2 more 4K reviews from Section 3 Video Nasties. He thought only one of them was. It actually turned out it was both of them. And he did a little sort of like mini capsule review and unboxing. And it was just great to watch. Always nice to see my friend enjoying himself and get all excited about having something that you can put on his shelf and say, I'm that much closer to getting the whole lot. I hope he continues with the hobby if his collection ever did get to the stage of, I've got it all now, what do I do now? Which is always the Achilles heel in anybody's collection. Then we got Euphoria Pictures, my friend Keith in Ireland. My God. He's just done his first chat channel on Friday. Absolutely brilliant job he did as well. There was at one point, what did I see? Something like 70 people watching in one go at one point. When the stream had finished and I watched it the next day, it said 1,200 people had watched a live stream. Wow! He was on for 4 to 5 hours. And Nigel and Andrew on it, which are 2 fantastic people. You know how much I have an appreciation for Nigel. And Keith and Andy, just fantastic. And as a first attempt, and that's what he said it was, is his first attempt, he did very well. At the end of the day, I tried to have a go and I try and do a good job. I think I do okay. But yeah, as a first go, can't fault the guy. As a channel, can't fault his channel. Absolutely brilliant. Every week he's got unboxings, film reviews, places where you can get these titles, so don't feel like you can't get them now. Tips and tricks on where to get them. Shows of what his room looks like. Tips on what type of equipment he uses and what's better is out there. Brilliant. Full of collector's editions, which I just couldn't afford back then. I've got a small percentage of his collector's editions, but massive respect to the guy. Then you got Ian Hill, The Ramblings, and you know I do my live stream with him now on a Wednesday, which is so much fun. Definitely a channel you need to subscribe to now. Please do so. He's just so fun, and I'm so glad that he's sort of in my life, if you see what I mean, helping me out to make my channel grow, and talking about all the stuff that we love. So what's he done this week? There we go. Here's something like verbatim, right? You've got a film review of How the West Was Won, top 5 albums of Rammstein, a CD collection of his film soundtracks, film review of June Part 2, top 5 albums of Oasis, film review of Count Dracula from 1970, the Italian version, X-Files Season 2 Episode 1 review, amongst others. That must mean he's doing 1 to 2 a day. I mean, you're not going to get bored on his channel if you do subscribe. Take it like that. You're going to get something in your YouTube feed every day to watch. And they're not long, they're 5 or 10 minute things, so they're great. They don't take up all your time. Not full of padding, in other words. And lastly, we've got Sammy G's World of Movies, who's done a Lawnmower Man collection unboxing, which I'm not a big fan of. I never liked the Lawnmower Man and its sequel. I don't think I'd ever buy that collection, but it is a nice looking collection. Don't take it like the artwork looked nice, but the film, I remember that I got caught out the first time with the VHS of that. It was atrocious. And then he was showing off his Blu-ray collection, Part 19. And we're nearly at the end. So this is now your YouTube. That's the stuff that's basically my friends, ones that I definitely say you need to subscribe to in your life. Every single one of these a pure gem. The first one we got is Down the Rabbit Hole, who did 2 videos this week. He did, this is the name of the episode, it's called Cry Havoc and Let Chips the Dogs of War, which is a Star Trek pun on Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country, which again is a Shakespearean line, which was Cry Havoc and Let Slip the Dogs of War. He's eating crisps of a certain temperature, you know, like strength of heat that you get from them, and whether he can do that or not. Always fun to watch. He eats things, you know, just goes, I bought some stuff the other day, and I tell you what, the colour of it's pink, so I decided I'm going to eat it. And then does a review of it. Pink candy and stuff. Anyway, he also did a review of an Atari 7800 game called Dreadnought Assault, which a lot of people were commenting on and saying looked great and all that sort of stuff, which I did the same. But they were coming up with a different title to the game. To me, it looked like Iridium. Only this was Iridium on the Atari 7800, and it was called Dreadnought. Have a look yourself, have a think, and then tell me whether I'm wrong. But that looked like Iridium to me. Not far from it, anyway. Then we got gaming royalty, Robert's Retro Gaming. And as I said already, he just brings out something every day. It's just a massive, massive list. Here we go. This week, Minecraft, episodes 28 and 29. Dwarf Fortress, episodes 5 and 6. Each one of those is probably about an hour long in length. Atari ST reviews of Rainbow Island, Robotron 2084. C64 game 1942, Spectrum game Never Earth, and Centipede, and some 8-bit gameplay on games called Special Delivery and Computer War. Wow. How much content? Instant sub. Go out there. Stop now. Pause this. Go over there. Sub. Come back. Brilliant. Then we've got Steve's Gaming. He did Planet Crafter episodes 33 to 38. Sadly, I haven't seen the last 3 days worth of Planet Crafter. They haven't been out. So I have sent a text message to Steve, hoping he's okay. And if he's not, then he gets well soon. We need a bit of humour in our lives, and he just generates so much of it. Fantastic. Definitely worth a watch. Then we've got Seb's Place, whose channel this week had a video called K's Catalogue Ocean Game / Not Really! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. ZX Spectrum Edition. Yes. So I looked at this, and the documentary's fine, don't get me wrong. But the issue that he was talking about didn't just happen for the Spectrum, it happened for the Amstrad. And even in a worse extent for the Commodore 64. So I wonder sometimes why he didn't amalgamate all 3 editions into the one video. Because I'll tell you now, the Amstrad one is better than the Spectrum one that he implied. And of course, the Commodore 64 one we didn't even see existence. So, yeah. But it's still a fantastic watch. Definitely go and see that. Then we got 20th Century Gaming doing his C64 live broadcast. That was brilliant. Colin Jones, aka Ponder, did a Mamemeister high score kerfuffle on Bad Dudes versus Dragon Ninja. That's coming to an end, I think, this week. Always good to see that game get some love. It's not particularly the best thing in the world. And then we've got Mamemeister, our friend Mamemeister, somebody who we all know and respect. And he did his Nice and Nasty podcast with Dave Wade. Watched that. That was very interesting. And then, of course, he did his Friday Waffle. And that's the end of the blog. Absolutely. I don't think I missed anybody. I'm sorry if I did. It's been an interesting week, and one that I think I'd like to end now by just showing you some trailers off. You know me and trailers. They calm me down a little bit. They make me reminisce about how I used to watch these important films or games. So we're going to start off then with number 1. I'm not quite sure how many there are. It looks like I've got quite a few in the folder. So let's turn the mic off and get crack-a-lacking.
Hi, baby boy. Talking to the fishies? You and me, son. We're different. We're special. We're connected to the land and the sea. I can't wait to introduce you to all the majestic creatures on our planet and show you how awesome this world can be. Yeah, you and me.
I'm gonna kill Aquaman. Even if I have to make a deal with the devil to do it.
Free me from my prison, and all my power will be yours.
The key to this prison is the royal bloodline itself.
He needs us. We're the end of the bloodline.
No, we're not.
Manta took Junior.
He must be stopped.
I'm coming for you. We'll destroy everything he holds dear. You want blood? Come get it!
What do you do exactly?
I take pictures of mannequins. I try to bring them to life.
Would you like to see my work? I think you're incredibly talented.
The mages have found the last true romantic.
I don't know about all that.
Stop staring. You're missing a movie.
Please don't scream. You're so beautiful.
There is a place at the edge of the world where men's pasts collide. Kirk Douglas.
Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Jonathan Conrad,
Yul Brynner.
your captain.
Together in an epic film of action and intrigue, with Samantha Eggar as a woman caught between a lover running from his past
Where do I go? To a cave to be hunted like you?
and a pirate burying secrets instead of treasure.
Why do you want him so much?
He knows. He's the only man left knows.
They took his island, then they took his woman. Now he wants them back. From Jules Verne, the man who brought you 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Journey to the Center of the Earth. The light at the edge of the world. And
all Matthew Quigley did was answer a Help Wanted ad. But a few surprises were waiting for Quigley down under. There was no mention of his friendly co-workers.
Is everybody in this country as butt ugly as you three?
Nor that he'd get an assistant.
Look out, Roy! Sorry, Roy!
Nothing about the transportation problem.
Are we lost?
Nope. I know exactly where we are. We're lost.
The unusual local inhabitants. The extraordinary cuisine.
I don't eat things that are still moving.
You gonna shoot it first?
Or the extra duties.
You can take me if you want to, Roy.
Kid, next time she talks like that, go all over the dress.
Worst of all, his employer turned out to be somewhat moody.
You could call it that.
But Quigley's about to teach him a lesson in labor relations.
That knocks me out of my own house.
Don't worry, Roy. Everything's gonna turn out just fine. Sorry, Roy.
My name ain't Roy, it's Matthew. Quigley.
Matthew Quigley is really beginning to annoy me.
Tom Selleck, Laura San Giacomo, Alan Rickman, from the director of the Emmy Award-winning Lonesome Dove, Quigley, Down Under.
I want this car.
Jonathan Miller would never do anything to break the law.
I need the keys. Thank you. Bye.
He is a very fine, very honest gentleman.
Something strange is happening to some ordinary people.
Yeah, that's Jack. Real nice man. What do you do, rob a bank?
He's a law-abiding taxpayer minding his own business. Killed 12 people, wounded 23 more, stole 6 cars, most of them Ferraris. If anybody deserves to go that way, it sure in the hell's him. I've worked homicide for 13 years. I have never seen anything like this. You trying to tell me that she's part of this? Step out of the car slow! I want answers, and I want them now. Explanation won't help you. I want to know why it takes 15 shots to take down some sold-out stripper. Why 3 law-abiding citizens all of a sudden go crazy and start killing people. We're talking spacemen here. Something gets in his way, he kills it. Finds a body, gets inside, uses it to move around. Try for one on the tire. But you think this is easy? Why don't you try?
Bye.
I guess a career in the police didn't really prepare you for this, did it?
The hidden.
You think it's over now? You're wrong.
Yep, and there's the trailers, and those are trailers of stuff I've watched this week or I've bought this week. Some crackers in there. The Hidden I hadn't seen for a long time, and I had immense enjoyment with that. The Light at the End of the World I've seen twice now in this year on terrestrial TV, well, satellite TV, Freeview. And it's such a nice film to watch. Yul Brynner and Kirk Douglas, they're just sort of mesmerizing on screen. But anyway, purchases this week, so that you could see some of the trailers that I had there. So this turned up this week. This is my Columbo box set, the 70s complete collection on Blu-ray. Yes, I've got them already on DVD, but I bought the Blu-rays. They are 4K transfers, so they've upscaled them to 4K, then downscaled to 1080p, and the picture, I believe, is immense. It's actually distributed over here by Fabulous Films, but the transfers are the original Paramount ones by Kino Libre or something like Kino Libre. I can never get their name correct. But apparently it's wonderful, so I'm really looking forward to going through those again. Another copy of The Thing Steelbook. I don't know if I showed that last week. It did turn up just at the end of last week. Another copy. I mean, my God, how many versions have I got now of The Thing? But it's so enjoyable, The Thing. I just love it. Doctor Who's Celestial Toymaker, which is the 60s version of the Celestial Toymaker, not the latest version, is an animated version of it, of missing episodes that are missing from the William Hartnell era. Looking forward to watching that. Then we've got Tom Selleck's Quigley Down Under, which I had on DVD. Recently found out from my mate Mick Muck-Movies, who loves his westerns, by the way. Definitely a guy to subscribe to. Indicated that you can get this as a media book quite cheaply. Saw how cheap it was and went, oh yeah, gotta have that, because I only had the DVD copy. This is a Blu-ray and a media book, which means I've got a nice booklet inside as well. You just saw the trailer for The Hidden. What a great film The Hidden is. So glad I managed to still find a copy of that floating about. A lot of these HMV Platinum Premium collections have now gone. They used to be numbered, so this one's number 94. But I mean, if you can get hold of some of these that are still out there, do so. They're not going to be there forever. Then you've got Disney's or Marvel's The Moon Knight, which was not one of my favourite Marvel productions at all last year, but Moon Knight was a comic that I've got as a collection upstairs. The comic being so much better, but it goes with my other Marvel tin sets, so that's the reason for having that. And it's the same for another one in this collection, which I'll bring out in a moment. It's the same for this one, Aquaman. A lovely looking steelbook. So glossy, I can only get certain angles to make it look nice. Very glossy. But it's a DC production. It just goes with my DC collection. And this is just to end off the whole Star Trek debacle on what is called Star Trek Discovery, which has its ups and downs. It's definitely got its knockers, who don't like it. This is season 4. Season 5 has just been announced. All of my seasons of Discovery have been steelbooks. So that was, I waited until the last minute where the price dropped. So as soon as season 5 was announced, season 4's versions of the steelbooks went down in price. So I managed to get a cheap copy of that. I mean, when I say cheap, when it originally came out, it was 35-40 quid. I got it less than half price. And that's everything on steelbook and movie and TV related that came this week. That's a massive amount. The Columbo one alone was an expensive purchase. But what a series, what a show. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Hope you enjoyed this blog. There'll be more stuff this week. Obviously, I'll try and get a movie capsule review done. I'm thinking about. Somebody mentioned to me, why don't you use those YouTube 1 minute segments? You know, these things that they're trying to highly promote, where you do something in just under a minute. Do 1 minute gameplay from your Mister. I thought that's an idea, where I just start at the numbers of the Commodore 64, the very top one, randomly. Introduce it, play the game. 1 minute later, it's finished with. No, don't even have to review it. Just call it Del Boy's 1 minute gameplay. I might do that. It's rushing around in my head at the moment. I just think to myself, certain games I will last longer than a minute, so I'd be ending the gameplay early. And I think these things from YouTube are set to stop at 59.99. I don't know, the 1 minute mark. So I'm not sure how it'd work. But we'll see. And with that, I'm going to say salute. Thank you, my friends. Look out for the next one. It's going to be an interesting week. The first week back at work after my procedure. Thank you so much for all the kind words. Appreciated. Salute. Bye.